I'm Tammy Cooper, the Vice President for Innovation at the University of Mary Hardin-Baylor, and I'm also a member of the Executive Council for the CBE Texas Work Group. Here at UMHB, we ventured into competency-based education by developing what we're calling My Way at UMHB, and I'm very excited to share some of that with you today. I think competency-based education means different things to different institutions, and I think that's one of the great things about this movement that we're seeing happen nationally. However, I think there are some things that are really important for us to take into account when we think about defining CBE. And for me personally, in the research that I've done in studying what institutions are doing in my work here, I really think that competency-based education, to be impactful, really means that learning is what's important and time becomes the thing that kind of takes the back seat. The problem we were trying to solve is we don't currently serve adult learners very well. We're very traditional. We have traditional semesters, face-to-face courses, some online, but mainly traditional, aimed at serving high schoolers, coming for a coming-of-age experience on a traditional residential campus. But we thought that we could serve an adult population well too. We're very close to a military base at Fort Hood, where active duty especially need the flexibility and the accessibility that we just couldn't provide in our traditional programs. So what we did was we designed a subscription model program, $3,000 per 6 months. Students are able to complete all they can within that 6 months with no additional fees. All the resources are included. We use a strategy where we don't have to charge students extra. They don't have to purchase textbooks outside of the program. They have a network of success coaches that help them. They have access to our full-time faculty, subject matter experts that serve in the program. And so we feel like that we have designed a competency-based education program that's really aimed at serving a different type of population than we are used to serving. I'd like to talk a little bit about how we got started. I think it's really important to be thoughtful about how you begin this journey on your campus. For us, it began with a president and a provost who were excited about the idea and very supportive. So from the beginning of the idea being brought forward, we had senior leader input and support from a resource and an idea perspective. So that was really helpful for us. Our provost and myself decided that when we began to look for faculty who could help with the program, we thought about, should we describe to them what is CBE, the nuts and bolts? How does it work? How is it different from how you currently teach? But what we decided is that really it was important to inspire people to be excited about why this was happening. Why would they want to be involved in developing a CBE program? Did it really matter about how the curriculum would be designed or how they would work differently? It would later, but without inspiring people to really be excited, the work would seem like just that, work. And so what we did is we held open information sessions for our faculty, and they were completely voluntary. Anyone who was interested could attend. And we shared stories about our own educational journeys and how an education had made an impact and changed the trajectory of our life. Me, for example, I am a first-generation college graduate, and my education has taken me to places that I could have never imagined. And so we inspired our faculty to think about how a non-traditional or adult learner could benefit from this, how it could change the trajectory of their lives. And we began to hear stories from the faculty who attended the meetings. Hey, I have an aunt, I have a friend, I have an uncle, I have a neighbor down the street who could really benefit from something like that because they have the capacity to finish their education, but they just don't have a way to do it right now. They're working, they have kids. So we began to hear all of these stories emerging. And after we had these interest sessions, we sent surveys out and we compiled the responses from our faculty, and were shocked at the people who really realized what an impact having a different way of accessing an education could have on adult learners. So once we had the faculty subject matter experts that we needed, and by the way, our program is an entire undergraduate degree, the entire 120 credit hours we developed internally. It's a Bachelor of Applied Studies in Organizational Leadership. So the way that we decided to approach our curriculum was not to purchase a publisher's content because we really were aiming at keeping costs down so that this could be accessible to as many learners as possible from a price perspective. So we decided to completely develop the program with the use of open education resources and learning resources that were freely available to our students through our library databases. This was a challenge because our faculty were used to, as most faculty are, being able to select a textbook that's already been developed and designed by faculty, and so they trust that material and can use that in their courses. What we were asking faculty to do was really kind of do that process themselves, to vet materials based on the competencies that they were asking students to be able to demonstrate. So we started with designing the assessments and then faculty building in the content from open resources and freely available library resources. To drive that process, we really needed manpower. So we brought on board one of our faculty librarians, and part of her job now is actually to be our open education resource, or our OER guru is what we call her on campus. And she vets all of the material that our faculty select, make sure that we are using it in the appropriate way. Can it be embedded? Can it be linked? And what the copyright issues are, and if schools who have produced it need to be notified if it's used. She handles all those things. And so really I would recommend, to be effective if you're using this kind of learning resource strategy, you really need someone who can handle the process side and the documenting just to maintain those resources. So once we decided what our resource strategy was, we really had to decide how we were going to manage the curriculum design process. And I think that this is something that all institutions really need to be thoughtful about, because it can really become unwieldy without a structured process in place. So what we did is we actually designed a model where faculty could be owners of a lot of the process. We have a curricular architect team, which are faculty who are trained primarily in the College of Education faculty who are trained in curriculum and instruction. And they became adept in how do I write a good competency statement, how do I write a good authentic assessment. We're not using any objective testing. So those faculty began to train other faculty SMEs in the program about how to write competencies, how to develop good assessments. And then our instructional design team, we have instructional designers, a media specialists, and a copy editor who help faculty, along with the curricular architects, get through the process. And we actually are using a different technology system than our faculty use in their traditional courses here on campus. And so instead of burdening the faculty with using an entirely new system, what we did is had them develop their materials, their assessments in the system they're used to, and our instructional design team translates that material into our new system. It took a little bit of the burden off of our faculty, and rightly so. I mean, we really didn't want to expect the faculty to have to become technology experts in a new system just for this one specific program. So when we began to think about how we would deliver the educational experience to students in the My Way program, one of the things that was really in the forefront from the beginning was what technology would do the things that we needed it to do. And so early on, we described all of the features. That's kind of our wish list of all the things we would want to do if we were able to get the ideal system. And what we realized quickly was that oftentimes traditional learning management systems can't facilitate these types of programs in a way that we thought was going to be up to the standards that we were looking for. And let me describe why. So a traditional LMS is typically course-based. So a faculty member or a coach can go in and actually monitor students, but only within one course. So if you have 100 students in a competency-based education model, such as the one that I'm describing, they could be at any point in the curriculum, the 120 credit hours of curriculum. So for a coach who is responsible for monitoring those 100 students weekly, to have to go in and see where they are would be impossible in just a course-based system. But there are systems out there that are student-based. The root element of the system is the student, not the course. So we looked for a system that could offer that for us, and the one that we selected was Fidelis Education. Fidelis touts itself as a learning relationship management system. So the students are the primary, the root of the system. So what the system provides for us is a way to manage relationships first, but also provide curriculum and content to students wherever they are. So the system provides coaches with dashboards with flags and the ability to track activity feeds on every student, while it also delivers all of our content and our assessments. Faculty have the ability to be assigned to specific assessments and can go in and grade them. So it really does manage the relationships while allowing the students to move through the curriculum at their own pace. So when we developed the program, we thought about how we would compensate faculty during the development phase of the content, and then also once the program is implemented. So during the development phase, we paid faculty stipends at the same credit hour equivalent as we do to develop online courses. But when we began to think about when the program launches, what does that look like for faculty load, or how will we compensate faculty once they begin in the model? So I think I need to describe kind of what our faculty do or will do come August 15th, which is our launch date. So our faculty subject matter experts will actually go into our system. They will grade and evaluate the assessments for their assigned competency anchor. We call them competency anchors. And each competency anchor is anywhere from 2 to 6 credit hour equivalents. So pay is adjusted based on the per credit hour equivalent. So the faculty will log in, they'll score and evaluate assessments. They will maintain a learning community around their competency anchor to answer and monitor questions that are arising. This will help us make adjustments in the curriculum if we see that students are having issues with certain assessments or certain parts of assessments. They will also tutor one-on-one if a student gets to that point, and we have kind of a success map where coaches will know how to take students through some things before they get to the faculty one-on-one. And they'll also be emailing welcoming students into their competency anchor when they're notified that new students enter their area. So once the implementation begins, one of the things that I'm sure most of us are perplexed about is faculty load. So for the first year of the program, we're piloting with 50 students, and we're assigning a faculty member to each competency anchor. We are actually asking them to track their time, and we are going to use this as a benchmark for faculty load for the following year. But the current year, we are compensating faculty very similarly to teaching either an overload or an adjunct teaching a course for us as far as monetary compensation. And then we hope to be able to benchmark and actually calculate if one of our full-time faculty wants to teach in the My Way program as part of their load. We're going to actually have a calculation that will allow us to provide that to faculty. So when we began this process, probably looking at the idea maybe 2 years ago, we immediately began conversations with the regional accreditor, and we knew that we needed to submit a substantive change. We submitted our substantive change back in November and received the green light to move forward in April. And we were just in constant communication with our vice president at SAC COC to make sure that we were doing things correctly and that we could, if at all possible, head off any delays. And so we were fortunate in that we found that they were very helpful, and we didn't have any delays in actually getting our accreditation approved. So back-end systems are really an important consideration for any school that is considering competency-based education, because almost every back-end system is impacted. When we first began this journey, I had a faculty member say to me, this is like you're trying to create a university inside a university, and that really is true. So what we did is once we had approval for the idea and the resources, we immediately brought in all of the back-end units and kind of had an all-hands meeting and described what we were doing, let it soak in for a while, and continued to have our back-end units at the table, even in meetings that maybe seemed like they didn't really pertain to them. So really from early on, I would say over the last 2 years, our back-end people have been at the table. Our financial aid systems, our registration process, our billing process, the way we report enrollment data, all of those things were impacted in ways that were fairly significant. So having those people on board early and allowing them to think about the processes that they use and the changes that need to be made were really significant for us. So within the program, once students begin, all of our competencies are mapped back to courses, and that roadmap is really required. Our regional accreditor won't approve competency-based education programs, which is my understanding, unless we have a roadmap back to courses. And really, I agree with that requirement, because I think these are new types of programs, but I think we have a responsibility to protect the student. So if we have students who enter the program and stay here for 2 subscription terms and then decide they want to switch to a different type of program, we have to have a way to translate that currency into something that they can take with them and transfer. So I really think that that roadmap back to courses is really important to protect the student. So one of the things to think about with competency-based education programs is how to recruit, what type of student you're recruiting, and I think it goes back to the problem you're trying to solve. For us, it was adult learners and serving them and taking a UMHB experience to them. So our recruiting strategy really was we needed someone who that was their role, and so we hired a full-time admissions and recruiting person that is designated for our My Way program. And she became versed in what competency-based education is and was on the ground floor of building our recruiting materials, our prospective student website, because all of those things were different for us. We're a very traditional university, a residential campus, but yet we had to tailor all of those materials to an entirely different student market. We weren't able to begin actually accepting students until we had accreditor approval, so we began to accept students only in May of this year. And so our strategy really is to fill our pilot group. So this year we're not actually aggressively recruiting, because really we want to see, can we provide a quality experience for this pilot group of students before we really ramp up our enrollment. So our strategy this year is to have a good pilot group, benchmark some things to see how things go, and then more aggressively recruit in our regional area. So also as part of our recruiting, we do use social media. So our admissions and recruiting team reaches out to prospective students in that way. But one of the things that we also did as far as these types of learners we're trying to reach is we looked at over the last decade how many students had left UMHB and not completed a degree. We compared our data to the National Student Clearinghouse and found that there were there was a pool there that we probably should reach out to. And we did, and we offered interest sessions in the fall of last year to kind of explain what this new program is about. And so we had some interest there, and so we've had a lot of word of mouth spreading as well, without the kind of aggressive marketing for this pilot year. I think the future of our program really depends on how successful our pilot year is, but my hope is that moving forward, not only do we expand the programs that we house internally, but I think that not just for us, but all institutions, we have an opportunity to begin to partner instead of reinventing the wheel. And especially with the movement towards affordable baccalaureates in Texas, I think that all of us have a role to play in that. And I would hope moving forward that we can form those partnerships with either other universities or community colleges as they fit our needs as well. I think looking back over the last 2 years of planning and designing the My Way at UMHB program, some of the things that really leap out about what was difficult was things like 2 years is a long time to be working on something without being able to implement it and see and reap the rewards of what you've been doing. And so I think from a leadership perspective, for those who are planning to venture down this road, be thoughtful and intentional about how you keep people inspired and plugged in. You know, it may sound silly, but we've done a lot along the way. We've passed out gold anchors because we call our competencies competency anchors. You know, we've had cupcakes, we've had all kinds of recognitions along the way because we really want people to feel like we're accomplishing something. We've celebrated the small wins as we've gone along because it's taken 2 years to get to the point where we're about to have students for the first time. So we don't have those great student stories yet that we can celebrate with. So I would challenge you, if you are considering one of these programs, to just remember that it's a long development process and you have to find ways to keep people excited, and it's a real challenge. I would also say that from a challenge perspective, there are a lot of roadblocks, and change is difficult, but this is really disruptive change to back-end processes, to the way faculty think about how they teach, to even just fundamental philosophical differences about whether or not this is really a viable option for education. And those are challenges that you need to be prepared to respond to along the way so that you yourself don't get discouraged. So a few things about institutions who are considering starting a competency-based education journey. One of them would be make sure that you know why you're doing it. You know, I'm a firm believer that we don't innovate just to be innovative. We innovate to solve problems. And so make sure, first and foremost, that there's a problem that you're trying to solve at your institution and that this type of model will help solve that problem. I just think that resources are scarce and that we have to make sure that what we're doing is meaningful and not just for innovation's sake. I'd like to offer a few suggestions. You know, as UMHB started this journey, we spent a lot of time reaching out to other institutions who were further down the road in their planning or their design so that we could learn from them and hear their lessons learned and also their advice on how to move forward in a lot of these areas that I've talked about. But there are resources within the state that I think need to be tapped into. The Competency-Based Education Consortium, which is part of the Fast Track for Success grant, and also the Competency-Based Education Institute at Texas A&M Commerce. There's really no reason to go it alone. There's a lot of knowledge and expertise being built right here in our state, and I would really hope that you would tap into that. It's a great resource.